At 7:42 a.m. on July 12, 1943, Staff Sergeant Vincent Sclafani crouched in a drainage culvert 15 feet from Highway 117, 3 kilometers outside Gela, Sicily, watching 5 Panzer IV tanks rolling toward his position. The ground vibrated. Diesel exhaust filled his nose. Dust coated his rifle, his helmet, the bazooka tube resting across his knees. 4 men, 2 bazookas, 5 German tanks. No support. Doctrine said engage from 100 yards. Sclafani was at 25 feet. Doctrine said fire at frontal armor. Sclafani was aiming at rear engine decks. Doctrine said retreat after firing. Sclafani planned to stay and watch what happened. The lead panzer was 200 yards out. Sclafani could hear the track noise now, steel grinding against asphalt. Could see the commander's cupola, the radio antenna, the 75mm main gun. Private First Class Tony Romano lay beside him, breathing hard. Corporal James Mitchell and Private Joseph Russo waited 10 feet away with the second bazooka. All 3 men were looking at Sclafani, waiting for the order that would either prove every armored warfare instructor wrong or get 4 soldiers killed in the next 4 minutes. Sclafani had broken regulations to be here, had violated doctrine, had convinced 3 men to let 50-ton tanks drive within spitting distance before shooting them in the back with a weapon that officially couldn't penetrate tank armor. In the next 4 minutes, either Sclafani would change how American infantry fought German armor, or 5 panzers would crush his position and keep rolling toward American lines at Gela. The first tank was 100 yards out. Doctrine said fire now. Sclafani didn't move. The M1A1 Bazooka entered service in November 1942. Shoulder-fired anti-tank rocket launcher. 2-man crew, gunner and loader. Weight, 13 pounds. Length, 54 inches. Warhead, shaped charge, high explosive. Theoretical maximum armor penetration, 3 inches. The problem was simple mathematics. German Panzer IV tanks had 80 millimeters of frontal armor. 80 millimeters equals 3.15 inches. The bazooka couldn't penetrate the primary threat it was designed to stop. By July 1943, American infantry companies in Sicily had fired 147 bazooka rounds at German tanks. Hit rate, 23%. 34 hits total. Successful armor penetrations, 0. The weapon was considered a morale booster at best, a liability at worst. Something to make infantry feel like they could do something against tanks. It didn't actually stop tanks, just got good men killed trying. The human cost was precise. 19 bazooka crews killed attempting to engage German armor. The pattern never changed. Crew positions at 100 yards per doctrine. Crew fires rocket. Tank crew identifies launch position from smoke trail and muzzle flash. Tank traverses main gun. Tank fires single 75mm high explosive shell. Crew dies. First Lieutenant James Morrison, Company B, 16th Infantry Regiment, filed a report on June 28th. His assessment was blunt. The bazooka is a morale weapon. Makes the men feel like they can do something against tanks. Doesn't actually stop tanks. Just gets good men killed trying. The tactical manual didn't help. Field Manual 23-30. Specified engagement parameters. Range 100 to 300 yards. Target point. Center mass of tank hull. Rationale. Maximize hit probability while maintaining crew safety. What the manual ignored was physics. Shaped charge effectiveness dropped with distance. The bazooka's warhead worked by focusing explosive energy into a narrow jet of molten copper. That jet could penetrate steel, but only if it hit with enough velocity. Every yard of distance reduced impact velocity, reduced penetration depth. At 100 yards, the bazooka could maybe punch through 65 millimeters of armor. Panzer IV frontal glacis was 80 millimeters. The math didn't work. The manual also ignored tactical reality. Crew safety at 100 yards was theoretical. German tank gunners were professional soldiers. They'd been fighting since Poland in 1939. They could put a 75 millimeter shell into a 2-foot circle at 500 yards. A bazooka team at 100 yards wasn't safe. They were just far enough away to miss their target and close enough for the tank to kill them with pinpoint accuracy. But doctrine was doctrine. Officers followed it. Sergeants taught it. Soldiers died following it. Through July 1943, the pattern held. American infantry encountered German armor. Bazooka teams positioned at doctrinal range, fired at center mass. Rockets bounced off frontal armor or missed entirely. Tanks returned fire. Americans died. Tanks kept advancing. The weapon worked. The warhead detonated correctly. The shaped charge formed properly, but 80 millimeters of armor at 100 yards was too much. The bazooka was fighting a battle it couldn't win, at ranges it couldn't close. March 23, 1943. Kasserine Pass, Tunisia. Staff Sergeant Sclafani's unit deployed with 2 bazooka teams to defend against a German armor probe. Corporal Eddie Vasquez was 22 years old. Chicago. Trained on the bazooka at Fort Benning, Georgia. Scored 87% on qualification. Believed the manual because the manual was written by officers who supposedly knew what they were doing. Private First Class Raymond Chen was 19. San Francisco. He'd fired the bazooka twice in training. Hit the target both times. Thought he understood how it worked. Both men were about to learn that training targets don't shoot back. The mission was simple. German armor probing American positions. 3 Panzer III tanks advancing up a dirt road. Stop them. Use the bazooka. Follow. Doctrine. Vasquez positioned his team at 120 yards. Exactly per manual specifications. Good sight lines. Clear field of fire. Textbook setup. Chen's team set up at 150 yards, providing overlapping coverage. The Panzers came on slowly. 15 miles per hour, commanders scanning for threats, gunners ready. They'd done this before. Poland, France, Russia. They knew American infantry had bazookas, knew the rockets couldn't penetrate frontal armor. Weren't worried. Vasquez waited until the lead Panzer reached optimal range. 120 yards. He'd practiced this at Benning. Knew the sight picture, knew the lead angle. Chen loaded the rocket. Vasquez aimed, fired. The rocket motor ignited with a whoosh. Smoke trail marked its path. The projectile covered 120 yards in 1.2 seconds. Hit the Panzer III frontal glacis plate dead center. Perfect shot. The shaped charge detonated. The explosion was loud. Impressive. Looked like it should have done something. It didn't. The rocket sparked off the armor and exploded harmlessly 30 feet beyond the tank. Scorch mark on the steel. Nothing else. The Panzer III kept rolling. Chen fired next. His rocket had to cover 150 yards. Slight crosswind at that range pushed the projectile left. Missed the tank by 6 feet. Detonated in the dirt. Did nothing. The lead Panzer's commander saw both launches, saw the smoke trails, saw exactly where the American teams were positioned. He gave orders. The Panzer stopped. The turret traversed. The gunner acquired Vasquez's position, fired. A 75 millimeter high explosive shell crosses 120 yards in 0.6 seconds. Vasquez didn't have time to run. Didn't have time to understand he was about to die following the manual exactly. The shell hit 3 feet from Vasquez's position. The explosion killed him instantly. Killed his loader, Private Thomas Webb, 20 years old, Texas. Both men died doing exactly what Field Manual 23-30 told them to do. Chen's team retreated. That was doctrine too. Fire and displace. Move to new position. They survived. Didn't fire again. The panzers continued advancing. Mission failed. 2 men dead. 0 tanks stopped. Sclafani had been 50 yards behind the bazooka teams. He'd watched through binoculars. Watched Vasquez's rocket hit the thickest part of the panzer's armor. Watched it fail. Watched the tank's response. Watched Vasquez die. He'd been working structural steel since he was 17, knew how metal behaved, knew about stress points and weak joints and where steel failed under force. Looking at that panzer, he didn't see an impenetrable target. He saw riveted plates, welded seams, bolted assemblies. He saw an engine compartment with thin top armor, saw track assemblies with no armor at all, saw vision ports made of glass, saw weak points nobody was shooting at. April 8, 1943. Outside Maknessi, Tunisia. Different crew, same doctrine, same result. Sergeant Michael Kowalski was 31 years old. Detroit. Veteran of 4 tank engagements. He knew the bazooka's limitations. Knew it couldn't penetrate frontal armor. Knew the manual was flawed. Followed it anyway because following orders was what sergeants did. The target was a single Panzer IV at 200 yards. The tank was stationary. Turret turned away. Crew had probably dismounted for reconnaissance. Perfect ambush scenario. Stationary target, no immediate return fire threat. If a bazooka could work anywhere, it should work here. Kowalski positioned at 180 yards, maximum effective range per manual. His loader, Private Danny Sullivan, Boston, loaded the rocket. Kowalski aimed carefully. No wind. Good visibility, perfect conditions. He fired. The rocket flew true. Hit the Panzer's side hull armor, 50 millimeters thick. Should have been vulnerable. The shaped charge detonated. Sclafani watched through binoculars again. Saw the explosion. Saw scorch marks appear on the armor. Saw the tank sit there, completely intact. 10 minutes later, the German crew returned. Climbed back inside, started the engine, drove away. They didn't even bother checking the scorch mark. They knew American rockets couldn't hurt them. Kowalski stared at the tank disappearing down the road. Looked at his bazooka. Looked at Sullivan. What did he say? What do you tell your loader when you've done everything right and it still doesn't work? He said what every bazooka gunner in Tunisia learned to say. We're shooting firecrackers at elephants. Makes noise, pisses them off, doesn't stop them. The statistics through April 1943 told the story. 63 bazooka rounds fired in Tunisia. 14 hits. 22% accuracy. 0 penetrations. 7 crew members killed. The weapon had a 100% failure rate against its primary target. Not because the weapon was broken, because the doctrine sent men to shoot the strongest part of the tank from ranges where the weapon couldn't penetrate. The manual was killing American soldiers more efficiently than German tanks were. Sclafani filed that information away. Filed away Vasquez's death. Filed away Kowalski's failure. Filed away 19 dead men and 147 wasted rockets. He was a staff sergeant in the 1st Infantry Division. He didn't write manuals. Didn't set doctrine. Didn't have authority to change anything. But he'd been an ironworker before the war. He understood something officers and manual writers didn't. Every piece of steel has a breaking point. You just need to know where to hit it, and you need to get close enough to make the hit count. The question was whether he could convince anyone to try. Vincent Sclafani was born in 1915 in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. His father worked the steel mills, 12-hour shifts, 6 days a week, molten iron and blast furnaces. He came home every night with burns on his arms and soot in his lungs. Told Vincent the mills would kill him eventually. told him to learn a trade instead. Vincent became an ironworker at 17. Structural steel installation, high-rise buildings, bridges, industrial facilities. The work was dangerous. Men fell, cables snapped, steel beams weighing 6 tons swung from cranes 200 feet above the ground. You made mistakes, you died. You paid attention, you survived. The work taught Sclafani how metal behaved under stress. Taught him that every piece of steel had weak points. Welds, joints, stress concentrations. You didn't need to break the whole structure. You just needed to find the weak point, apply force there. The whole thing failed. 1937. Sclafani worked on the Fort Pitt Bridge spanning the Monongahela River. 600 feet long, steel truss construction, thousands of riveted connections. He watched engineers calculate stress loads on girder joints, watched them measure force distribution, learned that a 2-inch weld point could be the failure point for a 60-ton structure. Force applied at the right angle, right location, the entire girder came apart. That knowledge saved 3 men in 1938. Construction crane lifting an I-beam. Weight, 4 tons. The crane's cable mounting had a hairline crack in the weld. Sclafani saw it during morning inspection, pointed it out to the foreman. Foreman said the weld was within tolerance, told Sclafani to get back to work. Sclafani refused. Said the crack was in a stress concentration point. Said when the crane lifted the beam, force would concentrate at that exact weld. Said the cable would fail. Said men would die. Foreman called him insubordinate. Threatened to fire him. Sclafani said, "Fire me after you replace the cable." The foreman, angry now, ordered the crane operator to lift the beam just to prove Sclafani wrong. The cable snapped at the weld point when the beam was 40 feet off the ground. 4 tons of steel fell, landed exactly where 3 men had been standing 2 minutes earlier. They'd moved because Sclafani had warned them, told them the cable would fail, told them where the beam would fall, told them to get clear. The foreman didn't apologize, just ordered a new cable installed. But the other ironworkers remembered that Sclafani could look at steel and see where it would break. Sclafani joined the Army in 1940, before Pearl Harbor, before the draft. He wanted steady pay, wanted to learn new skills, got assigned to infantry, Fort Benning, Georgia, basic training, weapons qualification, 24 weeks of learning how to shoot, march, dig foxholes, follow orders. Got assigned to the 16th Infantry Regiment, 1st Infantry Division. Shipped signed to England in 1942. Deployed to North Africa in February 1943. First combat at Kasserine Pass. First time seeing German tanks. First time seeing bazookas fail. First time watching Vasquez and Webb die following doctrine exactly. Other soldiers saw German tanks as impenetrable targets. Mobile fortresses. Too much armor. Too much firepower. Something you called artillery to handle. Something you ran from. Sclafani saw riveted steel plates, welded seams, bolted assemblies, engine compartments, track systems, transmission housings, fuel tanks, ammunition storage, vision ports, hatches. Everything had weak points, just like bridge girders, just like crane cables. You just needed to know where to look. May 1943. Sclafani's unit pulled back from the front lines for rest and refit. 2 weeks behind the lines. Time to clean weapons, sleep, eat hot food, write letters home. Sclafani spent the time studying German tanks. He requisitioned technical manuals from Division Intelligence, got recognition guides, captured German maintenance documents, schematics showing internal layout, armor thickness diagrams, engine specifications, fuel system routing, ammunition stowage locations. Everything intelligence had collected from destroyed tanks and captured documents. He spread the documents across a table in the company headquarters tent. Studied them like an engineer studying bridge plans, looking for stress points, looking for where the structure was weakest. The Panzer IV frontal armor was 80 millimeters. Turret front, 50 millimeters. Those were the facing you saw when the tank attacked. Those were what doctrine told you to shoot at. Those were where every American bazooka rocket had bounced off or failed to penetrate. But tanks had armor everywhere. Not just the front. Hull sides, 30 millimeters. Engine deck on top of the hull, 20 millimeters. Rear hull, 50 millimeters. Belly armor underneath, 10 millimeters. Track assemblies, no armor, just exposed steel. Vision ports, armored glass, vulnerable to impact. Commander's cupola, 25 millimeters. Engine exhaust vents, mesh screens, no armor. Sclafani pulled out a manual on the M1A1 Bazooka. Found the penetration specifications. Maximum penetration at point-blank range, 85 millimeters. At 25 yards, 80 millimeters. At 50 yards, 75 millimeters. At 100 yards, 65 millimeters. He did the math. At 100 yards, the bazooka couldn't penetrate the Panzer IV's frontal armor. 80 millimeters of steel versus 65 millimeters of penetration. The tank won. That's why doctrine failed. But at 50 yards, the bazooka could penetrate hull side armor. 30 millimeters versus 75 millimeters of penetration. The rocket won. At 25 yards, the bazooka could penetrate rear hull armor. 50 millimeters versus 80 millimeters of penetration. The rocket won. At any range, the bazooka could penetrate engine deck armor. 20 millimeters versus 65 to 85 millimeters of penetration depending on range. The rocket won easily. The problem wasn't the weapon. The problem was where soldiers were shooting and how far away they were shooting from. Sclafani studied the engine deck specifications more closely. The Panzer IV's Maybach HL-120 engine sat in the rear hull. Directly below the 20-millimeter deck armor, fuel lines ran through the engine compartment, fuel tanks mounted on both sides of the engine. A shaped charge penetrating the engine deck would hit the engine block, fuel lines, or fuel tanks. Any of those meant fire. Fire in an enclosed steel box with 75-millimeter ammunition stored in the hull. Fire meant ammunition cook-off. Cook-off meant catastrophic kill. Crew didn't survive. Vision ports were another weak point. Armored glass. Tough, but not impenetrable. A rocket impact on the driver's vision port wouldn't penetrate the hull, but it would blind the driver, shatter the glass, fill the crew compartment with glass fragments traveling at high velocity. Driver couldn't see. Tank couldn't move effectively. Crew panicked. Track assemblies had no armor, just exposed steel links. A rocket impact on the track wouldn't penetrate anything because there was nothing to penetrate. But it would break the track, immobilize the tank. A stationary tank was a target for artillery or air support. A moving tank could retreat or maneuver. An immobilized tank died. Sclafani compiled a list. Weak points on the Panzer IV, ranked by vulnerability and lethality. First, engine deck. 20 millimeters, easiest penetration, catastrophic damage potential. Second, rear hull, 50 millimeters. Vulnerable at close range, fuel tank hits likely. Third, hull sides, 30 millimeters. Vulnerable at medium range. Crew compartment penetration. Fourth, track assemblies, no armor. Mobility kill. Fifth, vision ports, armored glass. Mission kill, not catastrophic. But all of these targets required something doctrine didn't allow. Close range. You couldn't hit a tank's engine deck from 100 yards. The angle was wrong. You couldn't reliably hit track assemblies from 100 yards. Too small a target. You couldn't aim precisely at vision ports from 100 yards. The bazooka wasn't accurate enough. You needed to be close. 25 yards, 50 yards maximum. Which meant violating doctrine. Which meant getting close enough that the tank could see you, could shoot you, could kill you. Unless the tank didn't know you were there. Sclafani approached Captain Robert Hayes on June 1st. Hayes commanded Company B. He'd lost 2 bazooka teams in Tunisia. Didn't like losing men, didn't like sending them to fight with weapons that didn't work. Sclafani requested permission to test bazooka effectiveness at close range against a knocked-out German tank. Hayes asked why. Sclafani explained, showed him the armor diagrams, showed him the penetration calculations, showed him that the weapon could work if used differently. Hayes looked at the numbers for 30 seconds. Then he looked at Sclafani. Doctrine says 100 yards, minimum. You want to get closer? Yes, sir. How much closer? 25 yards. Close enough to hit weak points. Close enough to make penetration certain. Hayes considered this. 25 yards means the tank can see you, can shoot you. Doctrine says 100 yards keeps us safe, sir. Lost Vasquez and Webb at 120 yards, lost Morrison's team at 150. Doctrine's safety is theoretical. Tank crews can hit targets at 100 yards just fine. What makes you think 25 yards is safer? Not safer for the crew, sir. Safer for the infantry overall. At 100 yards, we can't kill tanks. Tanks keep advancing, kill more infantry. At 25 yards, we can kill tanks. Dead tanks don't kill infantry. Hayes was quiet. Then he said, "You get yourself killed testing this. I'm not writing your mother." Understood, sir. Hayes authorized the test, gave Sclafani access to a destroyed Panzer III sitting behind American lines, gave him 2 bazooka rockets, told him not to waste them. June 3rd, 1943, makeshift firing range. The Panzer III had been knocked out by artillery 2 weeks earlier. 37mm hole punched through the hull. Crew dead, tank abandoned, engine still inside, fuel tanks drained but structure intact. Perfect test target. Sclafani brought Private First Class Tony Romano, 23 years old. Brooklyn. Romano had fired bazookas in combat, missed both times, wanted to know if he was doing something wrong or if the weapon just didn't work. They set up the first test at doctrinal range. 100 yards, target, frontal glacis plate, 80mm of armor. Romano loaded the rocket. Sclafani aimed. The sight picture was familiar. He'd done this in training at Benning, knew the holdover, knew the lead angle for moving targets. This target wasn't moving. Should be easy. He fired. The rocket crossed 100 yards in 1.1 seconds. Hit the glacis plate dead center. The shaped charge detonated. Loud explosion. Scorch mark appeared on the armor. No penetration. The steel was too thick. The rocket's molten copper jet didn't punch through. Test 1 confirmed what Sclafani already knew. Doctrine didn't work. They moved to 50 yards. Target, hull side armor, 30mm. Romano loaded. Sclafani aimed, fired. The rocket hit the side hull. The shaped charge penetrated, punched through 30mm like paper, exploded inside the crew compartment. If the tank had been operational, the crew would be dead. Test 2 confirmed. Medium range worked against side armor. They moved to 25 yards. Target, rear hull, 50mm of armor. Romano loaded. Sclafani aimed. The target was close, very close. Close enough to see individual rivets in the armor plate. Close enough to see weld seams. Close enough that if this were a live tank, the crew could definitely see him. He fired. 0.4 seconds flight time. The rocket hit the rear hull, penetrated completely. The explosion inside the hull blew the engine deck hatches open. If the fuel tanks had been full, the entire tank would have burned. Test 3 confirmed. Close range defeated rear armor. Final test. 20 yards. Target, engine deck. 20 millimeters of armor, but the engine deck was on top of the tank. Sclafani had to fire from an elevated position to get the angle. He climbed onto a foxhole lip. Romano handed him the loaded bazooka. The angle was steep. 45 degrees upward. Awkward firing position. But it gave him line of sight to the thin armor protecting the engine. He fired. The rocket went through the engine deck like it wasn't there. Hit the engine block inside. Detonated. The explosion was muffled by the hull, but visible. The engine deck hatches blew off, landed 15 feet away. The engine block was destroyed. Catastrophic damage. Sclafani climbed down from the foxhole, looked at Romano. The weapon works. It works perfectly when you shoot the right targets from the right range. Romano looked at the destroyed Panzer, looked at the penetration holes. 3 out of 4 shots. 3 kills if the tank had been operational. He asked the obvious question. Sarge, doctrine says 100 yards because that's safe range. 25 yards means the tank can see us, can shoot us. Sclafani's answer was simple. Tank can shoot us at 100 yards too. Vasquez and Webb learned that. Morrison's team learned that. Difference is, at 25 yards, we kill the tank first. Dead tanks don't shoot back. The concept formed in Sclafani's mind over the next 3 days. Don't engage advancing tanks head-on. That's what doctrine said. That's what got crews killed. The tank saw you. You shot. You missed or failed to penetrate. Tank shot back. You died. Different approach. Let the tank pass. Ambush from behind. Tank commander's vision was forward. Driver looked forward. Gunner aimed forward. Nobody looked directly behind the tank. Nobody expected threats from the rear. Positioning used terrain. Ditches, culverts, collapsed buildings. Anywhere you could hide within 25 yards of a road. Concealment was critical. Tank needed to pass without seeing you. Target selection, rear tank in a column. Kill it first. The destroyed tank blocks the road. Column stops. Lead tanks can't see what happened, can't see where the threat is, can't identify your position. They have to decide. Reverse and risk more ambushes or dismount infantry to search. Either choice slows them down, buys time for American forces to respond. Psychological element. German tank crews were confident. They knew their frontal armor could stop American bazookas. They'd proven it 147 times. They weren't expecting rear attacks. Weren't trained for close-range infantry ambushes from behind. Fear of unseen threats was powerful. More powerful than fear of visible threats. Sclafani presented the concept to Captain Hayes on June 8th. Hayes listened, didn't interrupt. When Sclafani finished, Hayes asked one question. You're asking men to let 50-ton tanks drive within spitting distance, then shoot them in the back? Yes, sir. Because shooting them in the front doesn't work. Hayes considered this for 10 seconds. Then he made his decision. Next time we encounter German armor, you'll get your chance. Prove it works or prove it doesn't. Either way, we'll know. 5 weeks later, Highway 117 outside Gela gave Sclafani that chance. July 12, 1943. Sicily invasion D+2. American beachhead at Gela under German counterattack. Hermann Göring Panzer Division pushing south toward the coast. Objective: throw American forces back into the Mediterranean. Company B, 16th Infantry Regiment, received orders at 0600 hours. Defend Highway 117, main route from inland Sicily to Gela. Stop German armor. No American tank destroyers available. Artillery batteries engaged elsewhere. Air support unreliable. Weather poor. Clouds at 800 feet. Captain Hayes gathered his platoon leaders, told them the situation. German armor expected. Strength unknown. Probably company-sized element. 15 to 20 tanks. Hayes had 3 infantry platoons. No anti-tank guns, no mines. Just rifles, machine guns, and bazookas. He looked at Sclafani. Now's your chance, Sergeant. Show me if your theory works. Sclafani studied the terrain. Highway 117 was 2-lane paved road, olive groves on both sides. Drainage culverts running parallel to the road. 300 yards of straight approach from the north. Good ambush terrain if you were willing to get close. He selected his team, Private Romano. They'd tested the close-range theory together. Romano knew what to expect. Corporal James Mitchell, 25, Philadelphia. Mitchell had fired bazookas in Tunisia. Survived 3 engagements, steady under fire. Private Joseph Russo, 19, Boston. Mitchell's loader, young but reliable. 4 men, 2 bazookas, 12 rockets total. Sclafani found the culvert at 0700 hours. Concrete drainage channel 15 feet from the road's edge, 4 feet deep, wide enough for 4 men lying prone. Concrete sides provided minimal protection from small arms. No protection from tank main guns, but the depth provided concealment. Tank crews looking forward wouldn't see men lying in a ditch below and behind their line of sight. He explained the plan. We let the tanks pass, all of them. We shoot the rear tank, engine deck, both bazookas simultaneously, 1 shot each. Then we reload, or we die. Romano asked the question everyone was thinking. What if they see us? They won't. Tank crews look forward, not down into ditches 15 feet away. Mitchell wasn't convinced. What if you're wrong? Then we die fast. Better than dying slow at 100 yards like Vasquez. They positioned at 0715. Laid prone in the culvert. Romano beside Sclafani with the first bazooka. Mitchell and Russo 10 feet away with the second. Rockets loaded, safeties off. Now they waited. The morning was already hot. 78 degrees at 0730. The concrete culvert was still cool from the night, but warming fast. Smell of diesel fuel in the air from earlier shelling. Sound of artillery to the north, German guns pounding American positions inland. Sclafani's hands rested on the bazooka tube. Metal warm from the sun. Sweat ran down his back. Romano breathed hard beside him. Nervous energy. Mitchell and Russo waited silently. All 3 men had decided to trust Sclafani's theory. Trust that an ironworker from Pittsburgh understood German tanks better than Army doctrine did. The doubt crept in during the waiting. Doctrine existed for reasons. Keeping soldiers alive was the primary reason. Sclafani was asking 3 men to trust a theory based on 1 test against a destroyed tank. Static target. No return fire. No crew trying to kill them. If he was wrong about tank crews not looking down, 4 families got Western Union telegrams. Romano whispered. Sarge, you sure about this? Sclafani's answer was honest. No. But I'm sure 100-yard shots don't work. Seen that proven 19 times. 19? 19 crews killed in Tunisia and Sicily. Followed doctrine. Died anyway. 0738. Engine noise from the north. Deep rumble. Multiple engines. Diesel. Heavy. Tanks. Sclafani raised his head slightly. Looked over the culvert edge. 5 Panzer IVs, 400 yards out. Column formation. 20-yard spacing between vehicles. Speed approximately 15 miles per hour. Standard German tactical movement. Lead tank commander, visible in cupola. Scanning forward, not looking down. Sclafani ducked back into the culvert. Final check. Romano had rocket loaded. Safety off. Mitchell and Russo ready with second bazooka. Engine deck shots required 45-degree upward angle from prone position. Sclafani would have to rise to kneeling. Expose himself above the culvert edge. Fire. Drop back down. Total exposure time, 3 seconds. 3 seconds for a German commander to spot him, identify threat, give fire order. Unlikely, but possible. The commitment moment. Tanks at 200 yards, 100 yards. Doctrine said fire now. Engage at maximum effective range. Sclafani didn't move. 50 yards. Romano's breathing stopped. Ground shaking from track treads. 25 yards. Diesel exhaust filled the culvert. Made Romano cough. Still Sclafani waited. Lead tank passed. 15 feet from the culvert. Sclafani could see the driver's vision port. Commander's cupola, radio antenna, track links throwing dirt. The noise was deafening. The tank crew never looked down. Never saw 4 Americans lying in a ditch close enough to touch the tracks. Second tank passed. Track noise shook the culvert walls. Romano's hand gripped Sclafani's shoulder, asking without words, "Now?" Sclafani shook his head. "Wait." Third tank passed. Exhaust. Smoke choked the culvert. Mitchell coughing quietly. Still Sclafani waited. Fourth tank passed, almost clear of their position. 1 tank remaining. Sclafani raised his hand. Gave the signal. Prepare. Fifth tank approaching. Rear tank in column. Target. Sclafani rose to kneeling. Romano rose beside him. 15 feet away, Mitchell and Russo rising simultaneously. The tank's engine deck was 23 feet away. Sclafani aligned his bazooka on the rear deck, right side, above the engine compartment. 20 millimeters of armor. Mitchell aimed at the left side. Both men targeting the weakest armor, protecting the most critical component. Sclafani squeezed the trigger. Electric ignition. Rocket motor ignited. Whoosh of propellant. The rocket covered 23 feet in 0.4 seconds. Mitchell fired half-second later. Both rockets in flight simultaneously. Impact. Sclafani's rocket struck engine deck right side. Shaped charge detonated. Molten copper jet penetrated 20 millimeter armor. Penetrated engine block. Penetrated fuel lines. The engine exploded. Fuel ignited. Ammunition in the hull started cooking off. 75 millimeter rounds detonating inside a sealed steel box. Mitchell's rocket hit left side. Penetrated. Detonated inside the engine compartment. Secondary explosion. More fuel. More ammunition. The Panzer IV transformed from combat vehicle to funeral pyre in 4 seconds. Turret blew off from internal pressure. Landed 15 feet from the chassis. Hull split open. Flames shot 40 feet into the air. Crew didn't escape. Couldn't escape. They died inside. The column stopped. Lead 4 tanks halted immediately. Commanders couldn't see the rear tank. Smoke and fire blocked their view. Couldn't identify threat direction. The rockets came from behind and below. Invisible to forward-facing vision ports. Couldn't assess the tactical situation. Lead tank commander opened his hatch, stood up, looked backward, trying to see what happened. Second tank commander did the same. Both exposed. Both vulnerable. Both confused. Sclafani stayed in the culvert, didn't reveal position. Let the Germans panic. 7:42:30. Fifth tank burning. 7:42:45. Lead tank commander ordered reverse. 7:43. Second and third tanks reversing. 7:43:20. 4th tank attempting 3-point turn on the narrow road. 74340 outside 45. All 4 surviving tanks retreating north, abandoning the burning 5th tank, abandoning the attack. 5-tank column stopped. Entire German advance on Highway 117 halted. 2 rockets, 4 men, 23 feet. Doctrine said impossible. Sclafani just proved doctrine wrong. Silence. Engine noise fading north. The burning Panzer crackling. Ammunition still cooking off inside the hull. Romano stared at Sclafani. His voice came out quiet. Holy Christ. It worked. Sclafani looked at Mitchell and Russo. Both alive. Both staring at the burning tank. Mitchell was laughing. Nervous energy. Adrenaline release. Russo was shaking. Hands trembling. First time shooting a tank at 23 feet. First time watching one explode. Sclafani crawled to the culvert edge. Looked at the destroyed Panzer. Turret blown completely off. Hull split open from internal explosions. Ammunition still detonating every few seconds. Flames consuming everything. No crew survived. Nobody could survive that. Tank would never move again. Captain Hayes arrived 15 minutes later. Running down the road with a squad of riflemen. Saw the burning tank. Saw Sclafani's team in the culvert. Saw 4 men alive. Saw 5 German tanks retreating. Report, Sergeant. 2 rockets, engine deck, 23 feet. Catastrophic kill. Column retreated. Hayes stared at him. You let 5 tanks drive past you? Yes, sir. Shot the last one. Others couldn't see us. Couldn't see the threat. Panicked and ran. Hayes looked at the burning Panzer. Looked at the scorch marks on the road where the other 4 tanks had reversed course. Looked back at Sclafani. He was quiet for 10 seconds. Then he asked the question that mattered. How many rockets you got left? 10. German armor will probe again. Different route. You willing to try this again? Yes, sir. Then teach every bazooka team in this company. Fast. We've got maybe 6 hours before the next attack. July 12th, 1400 hours. Sclafani briefed every bazooka crew in Company B. 8 teams, 16 men. He used the destroyed Panzer as a visual aid. Showed them the penetration holes in the engine deck. Both rockets had punched through within a 2-foot circle. Showed them the angle of fire. Explained the ambush positioning. Emphasized the range. 25 yards maximum. 15 yards optimal. Sergeant Frank Torres led one of the teams. 32 years old. El Paso, Texas. He'd fired bazookas in Tunisia. Hit a Panzer III at 110 yards. Watched the rocket bounce off. Almost got killed when the tank returned fire. He looked at Sclafani like he was insane. 15 yards is suicide. Tank crews will see us. Tank crews at 15 yards are looking forward, Sclafani said. Not down. Tested it this morning. 5 tanks drove past me at 15 feet. None spotted us. Torres wasn't convinced. What if they do see us? Then you're dead at 15 yards instead of dead at 100 yards. Vasquez died at 120. Morrison's team died at 150. Close range doesn't get you killed. Shooting at frontal armor from any range gets you killed. Torres walked to the burned-out Panzer. Examined the penetration holes, calculated the angle of fire. Realized Sclafani had shot from below and behind, invisible to the crew. He looked at the turret lying 15 feet from the chassis. Looked at the split hull. Looked at the scorch marks from the fuel fire. He turned to Sclafani. Show me exactly how you positioned, exactly where you aimed. Sclafani spent the next 3 hours training Torres's team, then Wilson's team, then 6 more. By 1700 hours, every bazooka crew in Company B understood close-range ambush tactics, understood weak point targeting, understood that doctrine was wrong. Whether they believed it enough to try it was a different question. July 12th, 15:30 hours. Torres got his answer. 3 Panzer IVs approached from the east. Different route, trying to flank American positions. Torres positioned his team in a collapsed barn 20 yards from a crossroads. Stone walls provided concealment. His loader, Private Danny O'Brien, 21 Boston, was scared, hands shaking while loading the rocket. The Panzers came slowly, cautious. They'd heard about the column that retreated from Highway 117. New American infantry had killed 1 tank somehow, didn't know how. Tank commanders were scanning more carefully, looking for threats. Torres watched them approach. First Panzer passed the barn, commander looking left, gunner scanning right. Neither looked at the collapsed barn 20 yards away. Second Panzer passed. Still, no one saw Torres's team. Third Panzer, rear tank, target. Torres rose from behind the stone wall, aimed at the engine deck, O'Brien beside him, watching. Torres fired. 20 yards. The rocket hit the engine deck, penetrated, detonated inside. The engine exploded. Fuel ignited. Catastrophic kill. The first 2 Panzers stopped. Commanders looked backward, saw flames, saw their third tank burning. Didn't see Torres, didn't see where the rocket came from. Made the same decision the Highway 117 column made. Retreat. Not worth the risk. Torres's team, 0 casualties. 1 tank destroyed. 2 tanks retreated. Close-range ambush worked exactly like Sclafani said. July 13th, 08:20 hours. Corporal James Wilson's team. Different location, Highway 114. Wilson positioned in a roadside ditch 18 yards from the road. 4 Panzers advancing. Wilson let 3 pass, shot the rear tank in the rear hull. 50 millimeters of armor. The rocket penetrated. Fuel fire started. Tank destroyed. Column stopped. Retreated. The pattern repeated. July 13th through July 15th. Company B Bazooka teams engaged German armor 8 times. 7 kills. 0 friendly casualties. Every engagement followed the same method. Close-range ambush, rear or top armor shots. Let tanks pass before engaging. The statistics told the story. Previous 6 weeks in Tunisia and Sicily. 19 bazooka teams engaged tanks using doctrine. 100 yards minimum range. Frontal armor targeting. Results: 0 kills. 7 teams wiped out. 37% casualty rate. 3 days using Sclafani's method. 8 engagements. 7 kills. 87% kill rate. 0 casualties. Same weapon, same enemy. Different tactics, different results. Major Richard Winters commanded 1st Battalion, 16th Infantry. He noticed Company B's kill rate. 7 tanks in high, 3 days. No other company in the battalion had killed any tanks. He requested a briefing from Sclafani on July 16th. Sclafani kept it simple. No formal presentation, just facts. Bazookas can't penetrate frontal armor at doctrinal range. Can penetrate side, rear, or top armor at close range. Close range requires ambush tactics. Let tanks pass, shoot from behind, aim for weak points. Winters asked the obvious question. Current doctrine says 100 yards keeps crews safe. Your method puts them at 15 yards. How is that safer? Sclafani's answer was direct. Current doctrine has 100% casualty rate against tanks, sir. 19 crews dead, 0 tanks killed. My method has 0% casualty rate in 11 engagements. 7 tanks killed. Numbers don't lie. Winters studied the after-action reports. Read Torres's account. Read Wilson's account. Read the engagement on Highway 117. All 3 described the same result. Tanks destroyed. Crews survived. German columns retreated. He made his decision. Approved close-range ambush tactics for the entire battalion. Effective immediately, July 17th. Sclafani got pulled from line duty, assigned to train every bazooka team in the battalion. 2-day crash course. Armor weak points. Ambush positioning. Targeting priorities. Escape routes after firing. By July 25th, 43 bazooka teams across 1st Infantry Division had learned Sclafani's method. The word spread faster than official channels. A company commander from 18th Infantry witnessed Company B's engagement on July 18th. Watched them destroy 2 panzers from a concealed position. Requested Sclafani brief his teams. Then 26th Infantry requested the same. Then 9th Infantry Division heard about it. Requested cross-unit training. By August 1st, Sclafani had trained 96 bazooka crews. The tactic was spreading through American infantry faster than any official doctrine ever had. German military intelligence noticed on July 20th. Intercepted American radio traffic discussing close-range anti-tank tactics and engine deck targeting. Abwehr analysts flagged the reports, sent them to Hermann Göring Division headquarters. German tank commanders started submitting unusual after-action reports. Common theme: tanks destroyed from the rear, engine compartment fires, no visual contact with shooters before engagement, crews reporting fear of invisible threats. Hauptmann Klaus Weber commanded 2nd Company, Hermann Göring Panzer Regiment. His report on July 21st was specific. American infantry using Panzerschreck-type weapons at very close range. Attacks from concealed positions, targeting rear armor and engine decks. Crews have no warning before impact. Conventional armor thickness provides inadequate protection against close-range shaped charge attacks. German commanders tried to adjust, ordered tank columns to increase spacing between vehicles. Posted infantry scouts ahead of armor to identify ambush positions. Avoided predictable routes where Americans could pre-position teams. The adjustments helped marginally. Increased spacing meant one killed tank didn't block the entire column. Infantry scouts could identify some ambush positions. Route variation made positioning harder, but the adjustments couldn't solve the fundamental problem. German tank armor was designed for frontal engagement. Thick frontal plates, adequate side armor, minimal rear protection, very thin top armor. Nobody had expected American infantry to get close enough to exploit those weak points. The statistics showed German losses. July 12th through 31st, Sicily. Hermann Göring Division lost 37 tanks to American bazooka teams. Previous month, June 12th through July 11th, 3 tanks lost to bazookas. The kill rate had increased 12-fold in 3 weeks. German tank crews reported psychological effects, fear of American tank hunter teams. Some crews refused to advance without infantry support. After-action reports mentioned invisible rocket launchers and unseen threats. The confidence German tankers had felt since Poland was eroding. Tank columns that had advanced aggressively in June were moving cautiously in August. Hesitant to use main highways, preferred infantry-cleared routes. The caution reduced their operational speed, gave American infantry more time to establish defensive positions, changed the tactical dynamic. August 5th, 1943, 1st Infantry Division After-Action Review, Sicily Campaign Assessment. The report included detailed bazooka effectiveness statistics, June 10th through July 11th, doctrinal employment, 147 rockets fired, 34 hits, 23% accuracy, 0 penetrations, 19 crew members killed. July 12th through August 5th, close-range ambush tactics, 212 rockets fired, 141 hits, 66% accuracy, 73 penetrations, 34% kill rate, 4 crew casualties. The comparison was stark. Kill rate, 0% to 34%. Crew casualty rate, 12% to 2%. Hit accuracy, 23% to 66%. Same weapon, same enemy armor, different tactics. Major General Terry Allen commanded 1st Infantry Division. He read the statistics, read the engagement reports, read German intelligence assessments captured from prisoners, made his decision. August 8th, Division Order 47. All bazooka teams will employ close-range ambush tactics as primary engagement method. Doctrinal long-range engagement relegated to emergency use only when ambush positioning impossible. The order spread beyond 1st Division. September 1943, Army Tactical Board reviewed Sicily reports. October 1943, War Department issued updated Field Manual 23-30 Addendum. Bazooka effectiveness, maximized at ranges below 50 yards against armor weak points. Engine deck, rear hull, track assemblies identified as primary targets. Ambush positioning from concealed locations recommended as primary tactic. November 1943, Fort Benning revised bazooka training curriculum. Added close-range tactics instruction. Added armor vulnerability identification. Added ambush technique training. Sclafani's method became standard instruction for every new bazooka crew. Vincent Sclafani never received official credit for the tactical innovation. Division Order 47 didn't mention his name. Field Manual revision attributed the tactics to field testing and combat experience analysis. No individual attribution, no recognition. He was promoted to Technical Sergeant in August 1943, awarded Bronze Star for initiative in combat. The citation didn't mention bazooka tactics, didn't mention teaching 96 crews, didn't mention changing how American infantry fought German armor. Sclafani was wounded in October 1943. Shrapnel from German artillery near Cassino. Evacuated to England. Recovered. Returned to duty January 1944. Participated in Normandy invasion. Wounded again, June 17, 1944. Machine gun fire through his left shoulder. Medically evacuated stateside. Honorable discharge October 1944. He returned to Pittsburgh. Married Anna Rossi in 1946. 4 children. Resumed work as an ironworker. Structural steel, high-rise construction. Bridges. Same work he'd done before the war. Worked until retirement in 1980. A military historian interviewed him in 1992. Age 77. Asked about the bazooka tactics. Asked if he knew how many lives the innovation saved. Sclafani's answer: I didn't invent anything, just paid attention. Watched good men die doing what the manual said. Figured there had to be a better way. Turned out, there was. The historian's estimate. Based on casualty reduction rates and engagement frequency, close-range bazooka tactics saved between 800 and 1,000 American infantry lives in the European theater. Destroyed over 400 German tanks that would have remained operational under doctrinal employment methods. Sclafani's response? Never counted. Just remember Torres, Wilson, Romano. Boys who made it home because they shot from 15 yards instead of 100. That's what mattered. Vincent Sclafani died in 2003, age 88, Pittsburgh. His obituary mentioned World War II service, mentioned Bronze Star, mentioned 42 years as an ironworker, wife, 4 children, 9 grandchildren. It did not mention tactical innovation, did not mention 400 tanks destroyed, did not mention 800 lives saved, did not mention that one sergeant's understanding of steel and weak points changed how American infantry fought armored warfare. Modern anti-tank guided missiles operate at ranges exceeding 2,000 meters. Technology has changed. But Sclafani's principle endures in urban combat, in ambush scenarios, in asymmetric warfare. Study the target. Find the weak points. Get close enough to exploit them. That's how wars are won. Not by following doctrine, by understanding when doctrine is wrong and having the courage to try something different. If this story moved you, hit that like button. Subscribe and turn on notifications. We rescue one forgotten story each week from the archives. Real soldiers, real innovation, real impact. Comment below and tell us where you're watching from. You're not just watching history, you're preserving it. Thank you for keeping Vincent Sclafani's story alive.